It's perfect now. What up, TC?
Dude, not much. Thanks for dragging me out of my stupor. Usually I'm in bed right now. Like, no lie, I'd be reading the Tito biography that I've been reading in bed right now if you guys hadn't been like, oh, hop on a pod.
Nice. All right, well, yeah, this time we're missing Slav.
Yeah, while he's gone, I can push my leftist agenda.
Yeah, finally.
Any pushback.
Finally.
Push my anti agenda. Absurd.
Yeah, finally we don't have to worry about that neocon bullshit. We can talk about how sex workers are good.
Like Tucker pill shit.
Yeah, the Tucker pill shit. Oh yeah, Spicy was ever yeah. Now we can talk about why sex workers are good and OnlyFans needs like government subsidies and like we can talk about the real shit now.
I mean, they need government subsidies so I can stop paying for all these goddamn subs. They're drying my bank account up, dude.
Have you guys ever paid for any of those?
Never.
Nah. I never paid for one.
I will go on record and I will say anyone that does is just a bit of a chump. If you one sub, you're a chump. Any more than one sub, and you're just a total just moron.
So one sub isn't clear.
I think so, because like that would you just have like a little interest.
That's a
like,
crush.
You're just a simp then. You're like a simp. You're like, oh man, like this really gets me good. But if you do more,
Something about Drew.
Oh, she looks like my ex. Yeah.
yeah. I'm super lonely, and she reminds me of like my ex. Or
Yeah.
My mother.
And my mother. Hold on, we get a beer.
Yeah, I saw that shit about the OnlyFans like pyramid scheme, where it's like OnlyFans creators have a link that they can give to other people, and then they can use that link, and then a percentage of their subscribers' money goes to them. I had no clue that even existed, and like that shit's kind of sinister for real. Like I don't know, I thought I have friends that do OnlyFans, right, and like. I get it, right? If I could make money selling pics of my pussy, like I probably would do it, just like it's a personal thing. Mm-hmm. But like, it's super fucked up that it's like a pyramid scheme to like try to get more people to do that.
Oh, the promotion
like the people,
thing.
Yeah, like where if you use like your own code, you get a percentage of their. Like it's literally a straight up on the face pyramid scheme.
Yeah, it's that Ponzi scheme like, shit. Sex workers. Yeah, everything in this fucking country is a fucking Ponzi scheme. Like, I don't know if you guys saw that like vector knife shit like in my town. You know that shit?
That was my entire middle school and high school.
For real.
They were up in my school trying to get us to do that shit.
For real.
Assembly shit.
Spicy and TC, do you guys know that shit?
I know, but I did not have that problem.
I never did it, but a bunch of my friends were like, yo, I'm selling knives door to door. I'm playing video games.
Yeah, I'm selling hand over fist, just like, caseloads. Fucking knives. Like, it's so weird. Like, they would like pull up in like nice cars and be like, "Yo, you know how I got this car, bro? I'm fucking selling knives,
I'm 16, bro." 8 people believe me.
He's like, no, dog. I can do that 9 to 5 shit.
I don't know how y'all do that 9 to 5 shit. I was doing the free shit in school last knives.
So I'm at Slaboid T.
Alright, this is Shit Spouter 37.
This is black.com pills.
This is the Fed Post.
Senior year when I was in school was like when you could bring the iPhone to school. So like there were kids dead ass going to the bathroom making calls to sell vector knives during homeroom. Meanwhile, like I'm in the bathroom selling discs to my friends like on the hall pass.
Yeah, they're selling mad vectors knives like fucking mad druggy girls.
I'm like, yeah, they got knives to cut it up with. I got a sheet for you, so hit us both up.
Yeah. They're fucking mad druggy girls, like their life's going to shit. They're living that Escobar lifestyle, just like
living that Euphoria HBO special lifestyle.
Yeah,
it's fucked up though, for real.
No, absolutely. No, all this shit. I think there's a lot of shit like random promo shit. That, I mean, just even mundane, harmless shit. Like there's always like
y'all saw that gender like transgender Netflix promo, right? For the girl that's in the hospital that's like 7 years old.
Oh yeah,
And they're like,
yeah.
they're like, well,
She lights him
how
up.
is he feeling? And then they hand like a blue, like a baby blue gown to her friend, which, like, for the record, is just the general color of hospital gowns, unless it's white with baby blue like shapes on it. Okay, so they hand it to her friend, and then her friend's like, you know, she identifies as a she, and then the girl's like, do they have any other color? Because I don't like the blue.
Wait,
and it's like
gender norms.
For real.
no, right. So what happens in this commercial preview? Friend takes the doctor out in the hospital. It's like, listen, first of all, the friend's about 8 years old. The other girl's about 8 or 7 to 10. I'm not sure. And so she's like, listen, she is actually identifies as a she, and it's really harmful that you say he. Can you find a different color smock for her? And it's like, no, because we just have blue fucking smock here. And second of all, if I talked to her for like a second, they would realize that she identifies as a she, and they just call her that anyways, because doctors just do that shit. Like,
no, she was looking like mad
on the
distraught.
commercial.
Yeah, she was like looking mad
going
distraught.
over the chart.
Yeah.
She's like, what? You read he off the chart? Like, look at her. And it's like, bro, he walked in into like an emergency situation.
Again,
That's
yeah.
what the chart is for.
Yeah, the whole climax of it was like her giving that speech to the doctors, and it's always the same thing. It's like, to do activism or to fight back against injustice is to do performative shit like that. That's the extent of it. Like that, if you want to make a difference, it's you making a big speech. Like, that's it, and that's perfect, because then that doesn't change shit. So
AFC style.
Exactly. That's literally what I was just thinking in my head, was like grandstanding and all that shit. Like, they love that shit, because if it stays in that realm, nothing's gonna change for anybody, for trans people, for anybody. So like, it's that's why they, that's always the like apex of all those scenes and like media or whatever. Is like, this is how you do the work. This is how you do anti-bigotry.
Honestly,
like speak to my manager shit. It's like, I'm going to speak to your manager.
Exactly.
You do politics.
Exactly.
I don't think it's
PMC, the
that, I think
PMC,
it's
baby.
just, they're not doing it in a rose garden, and that's where you get all the results.
Yeah, she said she'd do her Rose Garden speech, like, what, to pay tribute to trans voices or something?
Wait, AOC said that? Warren said that. No, I remember Warren said that. Same shit, same
they're one and the
shit, same shit. Yeah, same shit.
One of them's a darker skin color, a little more melanin. One of them's a Native American, allegedly.
Yeah, one of them's superior because she's got melanin, but we're not gonna parse that out.
The other one's a bartender from the Bronx, bro.
I was gonna say one of them had a bigger butt, but honestly, I'm not sure.
Honestly, and it makes me sad to say it, I think Elizabeth Warren's got AFC beat ass.
No, fuck out of here. Fuck out of here.
AFC's got just nothing there. Just nothing happening. And I imagine maybe Elizabeth Warren's got, like, a little bit of a dump.
Did you guys?
I don't know, man. As a man that respects all women, I mean, I think it's beautiful and awesome that she doesn't have an ass.
I agree with you. And that's all women. Therefore, I think Samantha Pritchard has the best ass of all.
There we go.
Did you guys see that AOC Hassan, the one who made up the 1619 project?
Who's who?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, let's see, Pennywise, 1619 Project Girl. And then, like, we've got pink-haired Rad Lib, who's
She's
like
trans,
a lesbian,
right?
just to add, trans or lesbian, something.
Something, yeah.
Something to
she's
give
the
her a
soccer
little bit
player.
extra bonus points. Yeah, that's
She's
it.
the captain of the women's U.S. soccer.
Is it Abby Wambach?
Rapinoe, Megan Rapinoe.
Rapinoe. Okay, so it's Megan Rapinoe, AOC, so she's got the, like, firecracker Latina thing going for her, so that adds some points into it as far as diversity. Then you've got your 1619 Project Girl, which I've said, and then you've got Woke Aziz, Hasan Minhaj, who's over there like with his Patriot Act show. I'm sure it's quite a spectacle to watch. I'm sure they really do a good job of just like barely skirting the surface of what's wrong.
I like that they social distance. That's a big sign that they're like, they're doing the right thing and they care about
shit.
Yeah, it's a good indicator to me that they care about the right shit and they're doing the right things and they're good people. So, I like seeing that, especially when I'm in Brooklyn and I see people in Park Slope in these bougie parts of Brooklyn and these white people are like, 6 feet apart from each other on a bench or like on some steps somewhere talking to each other.
You're like, good job. That's practice.
I'm like, wow.
Praxis.
Yeah, I'm like, yo, what good people. These people are so good. And these other people from the hood who are like crowding around smoking mad blunts, these are bad people.
What deplorables.
Yeah, they're deplorables.
You should go up to them and thank them. Just like go up and be like, thank you so much.
I should. I want to. And I want to go up to those hood people and be like, yo, you guys are fucking killing people. You're killing
I do the
people.
opposite. in Denver, I walk into Walmarts with my mask on, just to, like, get through the security line. Then I pop it off and I start yelling at people like, "You don't need that shit!" Like, I'll be in line,
You're trying to go viral,
whispering in people's ears. You don't need that shit.
Or laying that shit into a career.
Yeah, I'm trying to work into like the Ian Miles Chong thing. I'm trying to work into that, like, just kind of contrarian. Maybe I'll work into the Michael Tracy kind of niche. I'll just be like fake leftist contrarian.
You're trying to go viral, just screaming at someone in a store over masks. At a
Fuck
grocery
your
store.
mask, fucking lid.
I feel threatened.
I mean, I need a safe space, a maskless safe space.
All right, guys, what does Bagel Boss think about masks, though? That's what I'm wondering. Remember Bagel Boss?
Who's Bagel
Bagel
Boss?
Boss.
Got mad? You don't remember Bagel Boss?
Is he the dude that was in a store just freaking out that CRT
Oh.
on some lib shit?
No. That's Movie Bob. This is the guy who Movie Bob. This is the guy who
slap that dude.
this is the guy who's in the bagel shop who's short, right? Who's yelling about the white supremacy thing.
Yeah, that women
I can't
women
even
laugh
hear him
at
from
him.
down there, so I mean, it doesn't really matter. To me, that sounds like pipsqueak ant speak shit. Like,
Oh
I'm aware
shit!
here. Like, I'm looking down. What are you saying, dude?
White supremacy shit. That's crazy.
I mean,
I gotta cut
fuck
that out.
your 5'11".
I gotta cut this out.
Nah, leave it in. Let him know.
But
I do feel bad. I feel like I've taken us off track here. We were supposed to talk about some like real material shit and talking about.
No. We need some levity because what we're gonna talk about is obviously there's not much levity in that. But yeah, I guess the biggest thing that's looming that I guess we haven't really delved into is the eviction crisis and the UI. The fact that they're not extending UI. And all the shit that we basically all knew was coming for months. That
to me, like, as far as looking at it from a material standpoint, I'm like, okay, yeah, sure, this was going to happen all along. But thinking about the actual specific material conditions we have today, I honestly expected Congress to do at least something, even like $100 unemployment and like a 3-month extension, just something just for like their sake. If I was them, if I was the Democrats, especially if I was a Republican, I would want to be getting something passed.
Well, isn't the Republican stance is that they want to give the another $1,200 check, right, immediate one time, and the Dems are pushing for the extension of the unemployment $600 a week or whatever. I don't know details beyond that, but I think that's what they're. I don't know if it's kayfabe. I don't know if they're pretending to fight about this and they both don't want to do either.
It is,
yeah, I think that I'd go with that.
Just do both. Like, obviously, they don't want to do either one because they're doing neither.
Right.
And what they should do is just fucking both of them. And like, even if I was Nancy Pelosi, like super bourgeois, liberal, a bitch, doesn't care about people around me and poor people, I would still think that as far as longevity's sake goes and sustainability, the correct path would be to at least give the peons a little bit of money. Like, you would think they'd want to at least pass some type of
a lot of
just to keep people docile.
No, a lot of neo-libs were telling me, I was like, one, I told them this crash was going to happen to begin with, and two, I mean, obviously I don't believe COVID. I believe it's total psyop. So I believe it's cover for a real financial crash.
Pandemic.
Yeah, total lib pandemic. So that they didn't believe that was going to happen, and I said it was going to happen, and it did. And now that it has happened, I've been saying that this is going to get worse once there's the, UI doesn't get extended, the eviction freeze doesn't get extended, all that, and the loans hit. And they also still say, no, it'll be fine. They're going to do something. They're going to break off something. Like, they're not going to, like, let these people get fucked like this. But, I remember watching Cuomo, months ago, giving a press conference, and somebody asked about it, and he said, yeah, well, we can't let the eviction freezes drop and people get evicted, but we also can't, screw the landlords over. So that sentence just, it negates itself because that means nothing.
Well, I mean, obviously, where their loyalties lie, but
no, of course.
You would think, this proves to me that they're more retarded than they thought they were. Because, I thought they'd be at least smart enough to know that the longevity thing is to give people money to stay them off. This proves to me, and this actually makes me more optimistic, that they may be just as clueless as we are.
No, I don't think so.
They're just buying into just what is supporting their the means to their end, and they're not thinking more long term about how to keep people docile.
No,
that's what I think.
I got that people like the libs would argue with me, and they'd be like, no, they're not going to drop people like that. Like, there's going to be some relief. And I understood that from a tactical, what you're saying, that makes sense. But I also knew the best tactic that they have is to starve people for as long as possible so that, the negotiation is that they can give as little as possible, and people will be grateful, be like, yo, thank you for this crumb. The longer you, screw people harder and harder, the more they're grateful for less and less. So it's just a good psychological tactic to just.
You're right.
So which is why I was like, I don't think they're going to extend it. I don't think they're going to extend shit. I think they're going to let people let out to dry for a while, and only when it hits a boiling point, when shit gets really brutal, then they'll throw a crumb. It's just like the Floyd protests and all that. Like after all that shit, when it finally broke, after Rodney King, if you want to stick on that straight line of, police brutality and systemic racism through the police, only that issue alone, not the material thing, even that has been going on and on and on and on. And finally, what's the relief you get out of it is some company saying BLM. So, they wait till it's beyond, they wait till the last second before they throw the crumb, because they know this is when people will be more cucked and they'll be like, oh, thank you, we're making progress. That's their game. That's been their game for a decade. So I knew they weren't going to extend their shit. They'll give something. I think they're going to give UBI, but they're going to wait until it's like, balls to the walls, people fucking flipping the fuck out, like losing it. Only when it's at the peak crisis, that's when they'll do it.
Mm-hmm. Yep, it's pure, unadulterated American neoliberalism coming home for us to see in our faces. It's just like what they did to Chile, Pinochet. They made the economy scream, and that's actually like straight out of Freeman's mouth. Make the economy scream, make the people so desperate and so terrible on the edge of revolution, and give them a bit of a carrot.
Right.
Yeah, it's Naomi Klein's shock doctrine.
Yep, shock doctrine shit, no doubt. Which, by the way, if you haven't watched Naomi Klein's Shock Doctrine or read the book, go ahead and check it out. Kind of baseline shit. She doesn't do a great job of really putting the specific to the whole or the general, but it's really great just as entry level. And it's really great too.
Touching on something that shows that
disaster capitalism.
Regardless of motive, disaster capitalism, regardless of motive or a reason for the neocons and the neolibs doing what they're doing, the fact remains that politics isn't going to get anything done for the working class whatsoever, ever. Like, electoralism's done. Like, we've seen it over the past 4 years. It's dead. It's probably been dead for 20 years, 30 years.
It's been dead since its inception, because it's a bourgeois democracy, which is never going to be a whole democracy for the minorities, specifically.
Yeah, which brings in all like the, I wanted to talk a little bit about like local politics as it pertains to like housing law, which if you engage in local politics at all, if you've ever done it on any level, if you've ever like ran a campaign, ran for office, is a dog and pony show that makes no sense, has no value to actual individuals, like especially workers, at all. It is complete fabrication. It is this Kafka-esque play that they put on every couple of years to distract people. And every little like detail is so grandiose and over-explained and over-detailed because they need to make it that way to justify it. It's like this, they have to unravel this really complex story in order to justify it existing.
So TC,
and they also need to do it in a way that obfuscates the actual reason and confuses everybody and gets the trail and off the case of what's really
exactly. You get people arguing about like, oh, I want 20% affordable housing per unit based upon the new luxury housing condos being put in next door, not 13%. Like that's what ends up being the progressive versus centrist argument. You've narrowed the field of view down so hyper-focused that you can't see that what you should do is expropriate housing and give it to people.
Right.
Yeah. So TC, where are you located again? In Boston? Massachusetts. Are you you're organizing like housing stuff?
I have been. I'm totally black-pilled at this point, where I'm no longer participating.
I'm not gonna lie, dude. I feel that.
It felt fruitless because I was in these meetings for hours, and I probably pumped like thousands of hours into like local organizing, and it was just like it was smashing my head against a wall. And I lost. Like I literally had like mental breakdowns about it, and I was like, "Why am I doing this? Gaining nothing for anybody." Because it's just concession after concession after concession. You say something really simple, like, for example, in Massachusetts, rent control on the municipality level is illegal because the state, back in 1994, passed this law by a popular vote by like 0.8% that outlawed all rent control statewide. So, like, of course, municipalities are the only ones that really need rent control because they have the density. And so you have a bunch of people out in Western Massachusetts, and we talked about this earlier. Western Massachusetts, nobody. And so they basically turned the tide to like, no rent control. And now it's forever. You can't know.
Got it. You're right. Rules that apply to other demographics of the state get applied to the city. and obviously fuck some over. What's your TC? What's your experience? Like in terms of like local politics, like talk a little about that. Like, what's the background?
Yeah, I mean, I ran a local campaign in Boston. So I'm a campaign manager. I'm not gonna say for an office, but I was a campaign manager for a campaign for an office, and then I was working with some local housing groups and progressive organizations, and then I moved to the DSA for a period of time, and then I bailed and I left the city, and I just kind of like.
Did you say the DSA?
Yeah.
Okay. And what was it that made you bail after going to the DSA? Anything specific that relate to the DSA?
It was partly personal life stuff and partly just like burnout.
Gotcha.
I was just like, I mean,
yeah, I don't mean
lots of lots of nice people, lots of people that honestly had their heart in it. But it's still so co-opted by like this local politics.
Absolutely.
Idea that you can change that through voting and through like, oh, if we just get enough donations to like run a candidate. And there's some candidates that won on DSA slates in that region that are good people. But it's like, okay, great, now you're in the rat nest, dude. Like,
right.
Exactly. And you're going to be out of it if you don't quickly assimilate.
Right, exactly.
That's one thing I really want to talk about on here was kind of like the organization that the American left has today. Slash the lack of organization.
Right.
Why? And what are people even doing to try to help build that? Because like I've been reading a lot of revolutionary literature, but specifically militant revolutionary literature. So like Lenin's on guerrilla warfare or Mao's on guerrilla warfare, shit where like they're in the thick of and they're in the trenches and they're fighting. And it's really fucking blackpilling, or it can be, because I'm thinking, wow, look at their conditions compared to ours. But at the same time, it's making me think. In both of those books, and in Lenin's, like one of his most important or well-known books, What Is to Be Done, the question always boils down to organization. How do we organize? What is the way that we should organize with our material conditions? And the reason why Lenin is heralded as such a high figure, and the reason why Mao is stuff too, because they were able to take that theory into the concrete, and they were able to relate it into real life and make use of their material conditions to organize in a way that was called for by their material conditions. And so I'm reading this and I'm getting back to because I'm thinking, who the fuck today is doing that? Because all I hear is people telling me to read Lenin. Guess what, bitch? I have. People are telling me like, oh, like there's nothing to do. Okay, no, there's something to do.
Right.
Like, it's either black pilled from reading this shit, or you get too optimistic pilled to where you want to do nothing because you think we got it figured out. There's not enough people reading it and the material and relating it to our specific material conditions today. And I don't know who is doing it. And I'm reading this stuff and I'm looking online, trying to figure out through the left discourse, and I'm feeling lost because I'm not seeing any of it. And maybe I'm not reading the right people. Like I know that Amy does great material class, like actual material synthesis, and I know that like Adolf Reed does good classes, but who is trying to put all this to regular workers?
Practical
and
application.
Who's trying to build a party? I know we have the DSA, but the DSA is fucking lukewarm.
No, we know that.
I know there's a lot of DSA workers and members who are great, that are actually have their heart in a revolutionary manner. They don't know anywhere else to go. Right. And then you have the PSL. The PSL is an organization, and they're a super strongly revolutionary organization, but they're a little bit too tanky about it. Like they deny the Uyghur like massacres and genocide in China. They think China's going to come save us one day. And it's like, other than that, I support their revolutionary nature and what they're doing. But where is our party that's actually grounded in the real material conditions we have? And since we don't have one, who is the person talking about trying to? Because I see no one doing that.
I'll make a quick note about theory. I don't want to talk about it too much because I tweet about it enough. But like, the whole, and we've talked about the COH, is like the whole like literalist interpretation of theory that's like evangelical, like biblical, like that doesn't recontextualize it in the modern era. It's just dumb, stupid radlib shit. It's always the dumb radlibs that are on that shit, and it's just a dead giveaway. There's it's just simpleton brain shit. But or it's delusional tankies or whatever, like
or it's elitist even.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, you haven't read the same text I have.
Oh yeah,
you couldn't possibly put.
It's
conversation on the topic.
Yeah, it's credentialing shit. But even aside from that, just in general, I think there's like we all shit post and talk shit and like theorize, but that's totally different than when it comes down to real application. And I think that people like us who are more on like the materialist end, there's less of a space to talk about what's actually being done and how to apply these ideas. If you're more on the Radlib end, there's a lot of direct action stuff that occupies their avenue. But for things that are more, class-based, whatever, you're right. There's a huge void of that. And we end up being associated with the lofty, like, armchair theorists. Like, what are you fucking doing? You're just talking about shit. So, I
just want to point out that when we do see revolutionary praxis in action, and when we see people trying to use might and people power to actually do something tactically in their community,
right,
to get shit like Chaz, right, or Chad or whatever.
Right.
And the reason that shit didn't work is because they did not gain anything materially and then give it to anybody. They gained nothing.
I'd say there's a lot of reasons.
Well, yeah, of course, but like I think theoretically speaking, they didn't take possession of any means or any assets, and they did not redistribute it to people that were not yet part of their cause.
Absolutely, they made a fake anarchist commune in one of the most well-developed cities in America. So
but it was Radlib.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like they're just closing off a section and playing pretend in an area that was already like set up by capital and is still owned by capital. So what is that really? What's that amount to? Nothing. You're just playing pretend, and then somebody comes through and breaks that shit up, and then what?
Yeah, eventually, because you'll run out of steam. You don't have any assets.
Right.
The material purpose, or at least function, that I see of the Chaz right now is to discredit any type of leftist society.
Absolutely.
Because that shit did not work. And it was destined to not work from the beginning because they didn't do it with class program in mind at all.
Well, that's why Tucker and all them call it Antifa anarchist bullshit, and this is what the left they're saying, this is what the left wants. That's why when I first saw it, my gut intuition was, this is like some Occupy shit. This is some like, it's just gonna make us look dumb. Like they're holding seminars and like having like, some hippie shit, and it's just making us look like not serious about anything. And it's just gonna dissolve. Yeah, reading
that
poems.
aren't even good.
Yeah, if they were good, it'd be different. But like, just like
execution.
Give me some slam poetry.
So, I just plugged something in the chat. I came across this thread earlier from the DSA Communist Caucus.
He'll come back.
So, and I think I thought it was interesting. I think it sort of gets at the unsureness about where to turn to whenever people talk about actually, pursuing any sort of left action.
Mm-hmm.
And it's pretty much a thread just describing the, obvious utility of electoralism, and as well noting that the current state of unions are really not positioned in
absolutely
any sort of left movement.
Right.
And specifically, liberals use unions as rubber stamp agencies to legitimize moderate policy and shore up left challenges. And from this, they pretty much said that the direction that seems best is one that the space that would require militant action, and they identified housing as the real opportunity to do this. And so, I mean, if you get a chance to just breeze through it real quick, I think it's, very timely given the, impending housing crisis. But I think it sort of gets at a very real, tangible, material thing that's going to impact a ton of people, and actually has some sort of like potential plan that could be actually, enabling tenants to organize for their own rights.
Yeah, I cut out for a bit there, but all I heard was revolutionary policy and housing is a big option, and I was like, absolutely.
Yeah, COH brought that up in the chat where we were just like spitballing about what to talk about, and like, we were talking about what to do next, and like, it seems to me that healthcare and education and housing are the core three of things that need to be removed.
Housing first, though. Healthcare and education, although it is 100% essential, it is secondary. It is secondary in most people's minds as far as their concerns and priorities, because I'm more worried about, do I have a house to live in than do I have a doctor to
Absolutely.
live in.
And
because right now I have a house to live in. I have no health insurance. I'm pretty worried about it, but I'd be way more worried if I had no house to live in, which I might soon because of everything.
Yeah, that's something that dawned on me as we were talking, was like, why was healthcare the flag, platform issue that Bernie ran on and that the left runs on, and Medicare for all, and then free college was a slightly more controversial one, and then housing was the even more controversial one that they didn't even really talk about that much. Why was it layered that way? And the reason is because healthcare has always been a lib technocrat thing, Hillary trying to do universal health care, Obama with Obamacare. It's already in the realm of things that have been chopped up by the DNC to technocrat neolib hell that people can't relate to. People, it's just reality, cannot assess risk. They can't assess. Insurance is something that's so removed from what people can interpret of like, what are things I need to pay for? I need to pay for some accident I might get in. Like why would I pay for that when I got bills to pay right now, or I got food to pay for right now? Like,
yo, dead ass.
It's
I
too
sold
secondary.
my car because I didn't want to have to pay for car insurance because my car was so fucking shitty that I was paying more for car insurance
That's the thing, yeah.
every year than my car was even fucking worth.
Right. Chappelle endorsed Yang, and he was like, yeah, I think people care more about paying for groceries than healthcare. And I was mad about that, obviously, because I like Chappelle and I thought Yang was stupid. I mean, I thought his libertarian UBI version was stupid. But I took the point over time where I was like, it's kind of true. Healthcare is sort of a secondary demand. It's just something you have to deal with, but people don't. I mean, when it hits you hard, and it's very important. But it's not something in terms of like galvanizing people. That's not the thing. Education too. College education. People are getting lib arts degrees, and they're lowering the standards for people to get in because they want their money to pay for the college football team. And these kids get these shit.
I just hit you on a renter fact real quick. Renters paid $500 billion to landlords in 2018. $500 billion. $1.4 trillion in 2016 was the total income tax for the United States. So renters are literally propping up this entire bullshit neoliberal economy.
One thing that I've been thinking as far as like, obviously, as far as the leftist agenda, we need to be able to show people some sort of tangible next steps to take, some sort of alternative, because otherwise we aren't going to get people.
That's the thing. We're known for we're known for healthcare, and we're known for education that is no longer applicable in this job market as things get automated. And again, that's why I think the unionizing thing is not a viable avenue anymore.
Things are getting more and more automated. I lost my job. I mean, also due to COVID, but a lot of it is because we just got a automated booking system at the place where I was a receptionist. So most of my work was gone, and that's just on a small scale because like they were able to use an app to do online booking instead of people calling me and to schedule in. And like that's not even automation as far as like robots going to the factories. That's just on even at service industry gigs, which aren't even technically like the industrialized proletariat, which are more like the, I guess, gig economy kind of stuff. And even at that level, things are getting automated, things are being atomized and separated. And so recently I've been reading a lot of, like, obviously Marxist theory and stuff. And one of the major things in Marxism with this whole historical materialism thing is that we're kind of moving in a positive transition towards, like, history is always moving towards something. It's always evolving, always changing, right? And one of the main things why socialism was theorized to be inevitable, or at least somewhat inevitable, because there are also people who later revised that as socialism or barbarism, that kind of thing, like Rosa Luxemburg. But one of the main things is that revolution is built on contradiction, and contradictions eventually add up to from quantitative changes to qualitative changes, and then you have a big revolutionary change. And one of the main reasons why it's thought that socialism is almost inevitable is because capitalism, with all its contradictions, is going to lead there. One of the main contradictions that they focus on in this theory is that labor during capitalism, especially industrialization, became socialized while profit remained individualized. So that automatically creates a contradiction and a conflict between the workers and the owners of capital. But what we're finding now is that we almost have seemed to hit an apex, a peak, where we're starting to go back down, where I don't know if capital is doing it purposefully, if they've realized it or what's happening, but labor is becoming less socialized now than it has been in the past. We're having work from home pushed. We're We're having automation.
That's why I always thought COVID was psyop bullshit, because they were like, oh, you might have to work from home forever. I'm like, why are you saying this when this shit just happened and you're saying you don't know anything about the virus, but you know for certain that this is going to be the norm going forward? That seems weird to me. But this was the norm. I know people from the private sector that that have been working remote forever. So it's like, this was the trend. Retail was already going to die. The service sector was already going to die. And, the gig economy was a skeleton economy after the '08 crash. Like, capital was already dividing all these jobs up to half jobs and quarter jobs. Like, that was
Mm-hmm.
That was the move. That was the move to do, because then you don't have to pay for benefits, and work is labor is
Machines
devalued.
can't unionize.
Atomization, baby. You got
More-
to atomize
exactly.
people. You put the pigs in pens.
Absolutely.
You know,
My
the
point-
pigs hanging out together.
Absolutely.
My point here is that does this necessitate a rethinking, at least, of our policy as leftists? Because
Absolutely.
a big part of Marxism is the fact of not necessarily inevitability, because it's also thought it could go towards barbarism, fascism, etc. But the fact that one of the main factors and contradictions is starting to diminish because we've hit the apex and turned the other way. Labor is becoming less and less socialized. Does this require us to rethink?
That's what I'm
our
saying.
position as leftists?
That's
and
what
also,
I'm fucking saying.
why is no one doing that?
That's what I'm fucking
And is
saying.
it because they're called heretics because they're not dogmatic enough? What's the situation? What's going on?
Yo, a couple episodes
that's
ago.
what I've been wondering.
Yeah, a couple episodes ago, me and Rebel were talking about this shit with somebody who didn't believe that somebody was guessing on this that didn't believe that automation was that big of a problem. Slav doesn't believe it's that big of a problem either, right? Me and Rebel were
I
talking about.
experienced it firsthand.
Yeah, me and Rebel were talking about this is already. It's not a thing in the future. It's not a thing to speculate about. It's already happening. And he was bringing up the point of like, oh well, they always project these futuristic, advancements that flying cars that don't happen. I'm like, yeah, for the consumer, technology will lurch and slow down.
Yep.
But things for commerce, for capital, for production, that doesn't slow down. That shit happens lightning fast. They move on that
Just
every
like-
night because it saves
Just
them
like
money.
The military industrial complex. They've been 40 years ahead of us for decades.
Yeah.
Like there's shit that the military industrial complex is doing now currently in building that we won't know about for 20
Futuristic
30 years.
shit. Yeah, they made the internet.
It is
They made the
that
fucking
shit
internet.
that people think it's fake. Like it's that Jetson shit. Like
We're going to become so atomized that, you know how right now when you like travel by plane or travel across state lines and you have like more than $2,000 on you in cash, you can get arrested? We're going to get to the point where you can get arrested for just like walking around. It's already happening. It's already happening.
Dude, it's happening now.
they're trying to move us
around.
to a cashless society. I mean, like that is a little bit maybe of a psyop, but not a psyop, but like a kind of a conspiracy. But they are pushing right now, while everyone's like trying to not use coins and stuff because of health, because of the COVID-led pandemic. There's a quote unquote coin shortage right now.
Right.
I go to my gas station to buy swishers. They won't they want my coins. They won't give me back change. They want coins because there's a shortage.
Right.
So they're trying, and like even a year or two ago, I was seeing a little bit, not a lot, but a little bit of my like conspiracy brain friends sharing posts that are more fringe about moving towards a cashless society. But it's becoming more and more a mainstream topic.
No, crypto or coin.
And
I
when
mean,
that does happen, they're going to be able to control your finances. You're going to be able to control how you use them. They're going to be able to track how you use them. Unless, and of course, you move to like a Bitcoin,
yeah, it's going to be
cryptocurrency.
crypto or
Even then,
precious metals.
it's going to still be like psyop crypto. Like
Yeah.
they're going to like even like
They'll
the
track
Tor
it.
browser, right? The Tor browser that like people used to get on a Silk Road and shit back in the day. That was created by the government. Like the shit that people use that they think they're trying to get around it is just created by the government and is likely just as easy to get cracked into as other shit.
Well, there's a couple looming crime crises. Oh, what were you going to say, TC?
I was just going to say, if you get rid of cash, then you get rid of the ability to have labor outside of the confines of the regulated neoliberal labor system.
Absolutely.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Lincoln Prole fucked.
yeah. There's a couple.
Like you're,
There's a couple like looming crises. There's like the eviction, the UI, the loans hitting, and there's the currency crisis. That is looming every day. Where it's a known fact. It's obvious now that the dollar is not going to be the major reserve currency, and the other world currencies are probably going to fall with it. And I think everybody who's deep in finance that I know of is, considering that the future is either going to be precious metals or crypto, like we talked about on another. Yeah, I mean that's just the way it's going to go. I mean, but yeah, I mean that's going to cause a rise in standard of living costs, and you know how it goes with everything. The people are going to be fucked by this whatever crisis is coming from many different angles. But yeah, in terms of what is to be done, I think a big thing is to galvanize as many people as possible. And if we live in a world where these century-old concepts or these concepts from the 80s or whatever don't apply anymore because labor is not the same. Labor's been atomized even more. They already warned that. You can't unionize a gig economy job, and that's what most people have, unless you're involved in the nepotism that gets you into these white-collar PMC jobs. Like, unless you're in that insular world that I got into personally, like unless you're in that and it's not a big club, then you are fucking left to retail service sector shit that is getting gutted, that was already being gutted, and COVID just put the nail in it, right? So it's like
shit that I did before I got
exactly,
fired.
exactly, and things that trade was to get. All they care about is cheaper. This is what I was trying to explain to that guy on the other episode. Was like, all they care about is cheaper labor. You get cheaper labor in Southeast Asia. What's cheaper than that? A fucking machine. It's simple as that. It's not. It's not any deeper than that. So they're going to. There's already self checkout everywhere.
Dude, people question this shit. They're like, walk into a fucking McDonald's.
Yo, I know, dude. I know.
McDonald's.
I know, dude.
And
The
COVID
touchscreen
has accelerated the fuck up.
Absolutely.
Everything is switched to that. Even people I know who work for small franchises and chains, like there's a place called Motomaki. It's like a sushi burrito place here. They've had to switch because of COVID from people taking your order to a digital interface that people take their order on.
I know. If you peep
that's gonna stay no matter what.
Absolutely. They're not switching back. They're not switching back.
Yeah.
No, that's the thing. If you peep these like neolib cum rag media outlets like Atlantic or fucking New York Times or what, or Business Insider, all their shit is like, yeah, well, actually retail and service sector is already dying. So, this isn't that crazy. This is just accelerating things that are already the trend. They know. Right. They already know. This shit was already on the way out. So, I mean, it helps the point that I think is a psyop. But besides that, this is how it's going to go, and it's not going to come back. It's just like those jobs left the rural Rust Belt. They're not coming back. Just like automation's coming, they're not coming back. It's gone. So
sorry to interrupt, dude.
No, go ahead.
The transition costs to transition out of a certain modus operandi of how you operate your business.
Right.
That transition is the hardest part. So what's happened is that a lot of these businesses have just gotten a huge blank check from the government.
Yeah.
Just to be like, oh yeah, COVID, like change the way that you do business, please.
Right.
And they just got this huge influx of cash. And what did they do with that? They laid off a bunch of their workers.
Right.
They improved telecom stuff. They hired offshore contracting. My company, a tech company, just hired a bunch of developers from Honduras. Like I didn't even know that was like something that they farmed out from my Honduras brothers and sisters.
No, of course.
I mean, solidarity with the working class everywhere and the impressed people.
But like they're just saying like, yeah, like you thought that we were farming out just like manufacturing. We're gonna farm out your dev work too.
Absolutely.
They'll farm everything out, and that's the thing that people in
Honduras don't know JSON, dude.
Absolutely.
Do it.
That's why this open border shit's another problem too, because like right now under our like neolib neocon shit government, like having an open border situation where people can come in, it's not going to be a matter of like we have more citizens and they have all the rights that we do and everything's better for them. It's going to be a matter of these large corporations can prey on these people a lot easier because they're here with less understanding of our cultural norms, less understanding of what the going rate is, and less opportunity because they have less ability to assimilate into society. So they're going to be the ones that are the easiest targets for these large corporations. So that's why you see capital, especially the liberal capital media, especially pushing for this type of stuff, and you're called a heretic or a reactionary or something if you push against it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because they'll isolate those people and they'll say, oh, well, you don't have a community here. That's why part of the reason that we foment so much racism is partly to distract, dum-dums, but also so that when we do hire out to these other, to like an offshore company, or we bring in foreign workers, that those workers never get solidarity. Like, it's really easy for people to be like, oh, they're taking our jobs and I hate them for it. And so why would I help them vie for better compensation?
Well, yeah. Right. That's why. Exactly. Yeah. That's why the anti-immigration. That's why the right wins. The populist right wins on the anti-immigration argument, and why the left seems like they're just in denial or in some bougie city and don't know what the fuck is going on. But yeah, this is the thing. The labor thing. That's a dead end. Like we can't go on the traditional modes of how we organize labor. So we need something new. And that's why I think the housing thing might be the wedge or the vector where it galvanizes the most people. I mean, the goal is to galvanize the most people. Get the numbers, because if you don't have the numbers, you can't do shit. And if you're on these fringe pull things, you're not getting shit. And if you're, I guess healthcare and education, they've managed to co-opt the fuck out of. So that's not going to get the numbers.
It's only a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. Housing,
only the people who are already in a good enough situation where they feel like they can need to better their scenarios and have the possibility to are the ones who are interested in education and healthcare.
Right.
People who are just working day to day, paycheck to paycheck, like me and most of the people that I know before I was Lumpinized and now on unemployment. Those people are not worried as much about. I mean, hell, I'd love to go to college for free, but how the fuck am I going to live if I'm going to college and not working?
That's why I think.
How can I afford my apartment that my landlord won't even budge on when the COVID crisis strikes?
That's why I think. Yeah, that's why I think
I can't work.
Housing will be the vector, the wedge issue that, because it applies to everybody, regardless of demographic, regardless of where you're at.
Black, anything. Absolutely.
And it's more immediate than education and healthcare. It's more of an immediate concern. It's more visceral, and it's not something that's labor contingent. So I think that's why that might be the right. But I want to know what Spicy and TC think about it, especially because TC you've dealt with this. Like, how galvanizing is it in terms of getting the numbers?
Yeah, I think it is galvanizing. I think what we could see, especially when you get mass evictions. I mean, eviction courts are sad, bro.
Oh, yeah.
If you're in an eviction court, it is really bad.
There.
It's really sad to look around at your fellow people that are about to get kicked out of their homes, and people are like crying and shit. And it's just like, now the families and mass, dude, it's happening everywhere. So I think you take this sort of like very, like you said, visceral pain, and if you can find the amount of people to advocate properly and to say, hey, the state isn't helping you, the government isn't helping you, private corporations aren't helping you, we'll help you. We are political radicals. We're going to come in and we're going to use people power and might to give you what you need to be safe and happy. So we're going to take it, and we're going to take it, and we're going to give it to you. I think that's something that we need to start considering as our last chapter before we go off the cliff.
Absolutely. And my question is, who's doing that? And why is there no one doing that shit?
I have a few questions before that. Like, before getting to anything prescriptive, like, because I have one friend who goes to school, who was going to school in Manhattan and has been tapped into all of the eviction court stuff because he does, I think he does legal defense in some realm. And what he's been telling me throughout all of these months is like, there's no infrastructure for dealing with any of this. Like, whenever the eviction wave is going to come, it's really going to be delayed. They're not going to be able to enforce anything. The COVID restrictions on courthouses means that, like, the idea of processing any of these things at a reasonable rate is just laughable. So sort of my initial question before talking about can or should do is, do we have any idea what the next couple months are going to look like? Because there is going to be this wave hitting, but it's not going to be like, everybody's forced out on the street in a matter of weeks. And especially with, I assume with lockdowns coming back in winter for the second wave, like, are they even going to have a choice but to, sort of let people stay where they are?
Lockdown where,
Yeah, and like, the other sort of thing that sticks out to me when talking about like contrasting healthcare and education and housing, in terms of, potential Milton options is, housing, I think, is the least abstract and is the most communally embedded. Yep. And especially if you're looking to move away from saying, who are going to be left leaders who are going to sort of dictate an abstract movement like, Bernie was trying to do with healthcare, or like others are trying to do with education. Like, the nature of housing means that advocating for your own interests requires you to be communally embedded and to self-advocate. And it's not something that you can really, scale up.
Yep. As far as tenants go, it's the most readily available way to organize is your neighbors, the people that live right fucking next to you.
True.
It's the easiest way and the most immediate way to organize and get that community action. Like, a lot of what I'm reading in like Lenin and Mao's on guerrilla warfare, which is not entirely applicable to today, obviously, in material conditions, but a lot of what they focus on as far as first steps goes is community engagement, community support, etc. And to me, I'm thinking, okay, what's the easiest way to organize? And to me, okay, labor is like, that's the first ideal immediate for most people. Okay, like, yeah, I can organize my employees. But a lot of these places in current day, especially people like service industry and gig workers, sign a contract where they are not allowed to even form a union. Like, they sign legally away their right to form a union before they're even hired.
Right.
For instance, that's what I did at Zaxby's Chicken. That's what I did at Telski Ski Resort, et cetera, et cetera. So then you start to thinking, okay, maybe labor is not the easiest way to organize or the most readily available.
Absolutely.
What is? Yeah. And the thing that is, no matter if you're working, no matter if you're not working, no matter if you're selling drugs, no matter if you're sitting at your fucking couch, the thing that's most readily available is the people right next to you that are also having to pay rent to the same person.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
I'm not gonna say like this is the most reliable base that we should be looking to, but it's also like a group that even the more bougie, well-off classes they experience.
PNC are paying.
Yeah, exactly, and they're paying exorbitant rent, and
Exactly.
Homeowners are technically paying rent. They're paying their mortgage to the
Exactly.
bank. So even people who technically are more well off, like petite bourgeois who own their business and quote unquote own a house, they would also be interested in not having to pay.
That's what I'm saying. It's universally applicable.
Half of landlords are small, quote unquote, mom and pop landlords. That's what the industry calls it.
Half?
And so, half. And so what I think Spicy made a great point about the tenants are probably not, they're not going to be able to just quickly get everybody out, especially over the winter. I think what we might see is something that happened in the housing crisis where landlords are going to buckle if they don't get bailed out. Yeah, I'll be curious to see what happens there. And landlords are going to buckle, and they're going to, that 50% of small-time landlords are just going to off their property. They're going to say, you know what, screw it. I'm out. I'm going to retire. I'm going to actually work for a living, whatever they decide to do. And what's going to happen is these hedge funds are going to come in. These private equity groups are going to come
buy everything up.
Right.
Real estate companies.
I have something from the Atlantic. Between 2011 and 2017, some of the world's largest private equity firms, groups, hedge funds, and other large investors spent a combined $36 billion on more than 200,000 homes in alien markets across the country. In Atlanta, they bought almost 90% of 7,500 homes sold between January 2011 and 2012.
Detroit, all that shit.
Just like Mark said, that's monopoly capitalism. That's the highest stage, the final stage of capitalism. And that's what's going to lead to, ideally, that's what leads to its downfall. It also may lead to some new hybrid form that fucks us off even worse if we don't get our shit.
Well, that's what capital.
It looks like we might not.
It's interesting that capital housing issue is even closer to capital, which is probably why it was more taboo for the left. Even was like if I'm in New York, like there's these luxury apartments that are just empty, and they're holding assets for a bunch of rich people who live around the world. So if it's an asset holding thing, it's super removed from any utility to anybody. That's what makes it closer to capital, is that it's literally somewhere to store money in the abstract, and it's like it's not about housing anymore. It's literally they've made housing itself abstract.
It's an investment.
Yeah, they've made the fact that it's a house abstract, and it's not even about that anymore. It's about this is where my assets are going.
I'll speak on this a little bit as far as it's just kind of my own experience, but I lived in a town called Telluride. It's Telluride, Colorado. It's a population of about 1,200 people. That's people who live there year round. There's housing there for about probably 6,500 people. But instead, most of those housing, I'd say 3/4 of the housing, is second, third, fourth homeowners that are bourgeois capital people who live in LA,
exactly,
New York, whatever.
Exactly.
And so I moved there. I worked there as just a towel person at their spa, and then I moved on to being like the membership coordinator at the spa, where I worked really closely with these people who were like for instance, George H.W. Bush's ex-vice president, etc. People like that. Like really, literally like the elite people. So I worked hand in hand with these people. I saw these people as just their piss on server worker person who made $19 an hour. And so I see this, and in the place where I live, where I'm having to do this, maybe 30% of the homes are completely occupied, right? And the other 70% are vacant because people who are rich as fuck own those homes as either an investment to Airbnb or just a second home to live in, or simply just a place to throw their capital as an investment to let it build before.
Absolutely.
I know people who lived in those houses as a caretaker who lived there and kept everything up and not cobwebbed, and they never once saw the owners for 2 or 3 years because they never come there, and they just own that house. And my friends live in a basement of that house to caretake it.
It's on a balance sheet. That's it.
Absolutely.
That's it.
And it's like seeing that, it's like that's just where they throw their capital, and like living in a place like that. Like, for instance, that's what really radicalized me. Like, before, I had been reading, like, Marx and stuff, Capital, whatever, and I was, like, a rad lib socialist. But I moved there, and I saw the way that, like, I saw the stark divide. I lived in Section 8 housing when I lived there because, like, I just couldn't afford to buy anything because of what I made as a wage.
Right.
And it's like, you look around and you realize the absolute gross disparity just in your face. And I know that it's everywhere, but it's glaring in places. No,
like I'm in New York,
like tourist places.
Yeah, I'm in New York.
Yeah, even in Brooklyn,
dude. I'm in New York, and the shit, like it's the one thing that, like, of all the things, just like I don't know, it drives me absolutely batshit Just knowing how many fucking empty apartments are and how many homeless people there are, and of all the whole like market efficiency shit, right? I don't even you already know. I don't need to say it to you guys. You already know what market fucking efficiency. Like, you know what I mean? Like there's this many homeless people and this many empty houses. Like it's mind boggling, especially when you know that it's just to hold assets. And this shit is I'm hoping that's a good avenue for something applicable. That's galvanizing for that will get the numbers. And if it's not through through labor avenue, at least it will be through obstructing commerce, civil unrest, something that will, hit them where it hurts, something that they can't ignore, But yeah, I think there's something that's common denominator about that's beyond IDPOL, because obviously IDPOL is a thing that fractures solidarity and fractures, galvanizing a movement. And something like this is super, universal. But
it's
TC, do you feel like you said you feel like it is galvanizing? Do you feel like it's something that there are obviously pitfalls in this? Do you think there were pitfalls because of co-optation or messaging, or what do you think kept it from manifesting that way?
Yeah, I think in a lot of ways, when I was dealing with a lot of the local housing organizations, those people aren't radical. Those people are extremely liberal. And so when you have these people, and a lot of them are wealthy. So you have these people that are they take salaries at these nonprofits, and they only make $32K a year, and then they own Triple Decker in Southie. And so they're like, oh yeah, I'm a good guy, I do progressive work, but they don't have any material interest in actually aiding the housing crisis because they benefit from it.
Right.
And so there is a co-optation there, and I really fear what Spicy was pointing out, and I think he made a really good point, is that the internal workings and machinations of the eviction process are slow and arduous, and they do drag people through hell for months and months. And with just how inefficient our courts are, I'm worried that there is not going to be no galvanizing point. There's not going to be a rupture. There's no this is the fissure in our reality where we can peer through the void and discover horrors. It's going to be this small, drawn out nonsense process, atomized, individualized.
Right.
I mean, I feel like there's two things in tension where, yes, it's not great that there will be some sort of public consciousness, but at the same time, I feel like the idea of some sort of public consciousness breaking is that sort of same process of abstraction that is what made Bernie's healthcare appeal weaker than Yang's give people money for groceries appeal. I think if it is localized and it is specific to each individual community that's facing evictions, that I don't see how that I don't think that guarantees that nothing can come out of it, because I feel like what needs to happen is that small individual communities would need to band together.
Absolutely.
And the only way to deal with any sort of atomization is to make people turn to those immediately around them. And this kind of slow drag process might actually aid in that. Now, I think the question is more whether there's any, positioning made by any sort of left to capitalize on that. But I don't see the slow drag as inherently bad thing.
Do you guys think that having some sort of local candidates advocating for these types of things would be beneficial? You look at what Yang did for UBI, and I think, like you pointed out, CRK, it's misplaced. It was this sort of libertarian thing. But do we need local people on the ground who are actually running for office, just outright saying free housing?
Yes,
absolutely.
Yes. We need people. For instance, okay, this is one thing I wanted to talk about for a second here and plug a little bit. Is, for instance, you have people like your PSL. And the PSL, that's the Party for Socialism and Liberation in the United States. It's they have some problems. They are pretty tanky about it. For instance, they'll be like, this Tiananmen Square massacre never happened, whatever, which is super cringe. But at the same time, they're one of the only actual revolutionary socialist organizations that's here in America as of right now. They're relatively new. I'm not sure exactly how I feel about them, but they're the only people I can point to and say, okay, yes, they are at least on the surface or in the face of a revolutionary socialist organization. Now, with that said, they're holding cancel the rent marches. They're holding all sorts of stuff that are more materially based. And I think that what we need to do is move towards having some sort of more material materially interested organization. I lost a little bit of the train of thought during this conversation because I'm a bit drunk. What were you?
You're really filling in for Slav and Turbo yeah, just being drunk on the pod.
What were you saying though before this, QC? Because I had a point and I kind of lost it.
No, about local politics.
Yeah. So I think it's sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I think it's important to have those local politics. For instance, PSL is running on a national scale with Gloria La Riva and Leonard Peltier for president. Now, obviously, they're not going to win the presidency. They're not even as an objective running to win the presidency. They're running just to raise awareness, to increase exposure among the masses, and to get the word out there. So I think 100% it's important to have people running. I'm black-pilled on electoralism. I don't think bourgeois electoralism and reformism is going to lead us to our final transition from socialism to communism. But I do think it's important to have those electoral movements. Even though Bernie was the most lukewarm, obfuscated ass socialist, he warmed people up to the idea of leftism, socialism, etc. Even though he got a lot of people confused on what it is, and a lot of rad libs that are just straight into idpol. There are people who know what it is. I think we need people who have a real revolutionary program, who have an absolute desire to actually change things in a way that is not reformism, that's not just giving compromises and consolations, but in a way that works for the people with a long line and vision of what they want in the future to run locally, to at least raise that awareness. Like, for instance, I might vote PSL, even though I don't really think they're ever going to win, but maybe they'll get on the ballot. Maybe people will hear about that.
Right, yeah. I'm not completely black-pilled on electoral. I'm black-pilled on the DNC and the GOP. I'm black-pilled on them. A third-party thing, and not the Green Party, some stupid shit like that, but something new,
like a real
something that is actually serious about. And again, if Bernie ran on M4A, right, if that's his platform thing, right, which is an extension of the technocrat neo-lib healthcare, fiddling, then why not someone who's purely on some party or some political agents who are 100% about material things or housing, something very tangible. I don't think that's to be dismissed off the bat just because electoralism sucks. Like I don't believe that, because I mean Bernie himself, for all his rad lib shit and his lib cuckery, was that he was getting individual donations that allowed him to compete without billionaire donations. So if you consider that, then small donations, that alone should give you the hint that you don't need to be part of the GOP or DNC avenues. You don't really need. You can exist outside of it if you have a wide common denominator agenda and platform. You could get enough small donations.
I think I think that a third party would be super popular. I think that eventually a third party in the United States would actually win and gain the power that it needs to by really grabbing the apolitical people that don't vote already but might be interested in this, and the people on our fringes. However, I also think that it wouldn't be enough. Like those people, like if we get a party like that, we need them to continue a revolutionary mindset and program. Like we wouldn't like someone like Bernie getting elected, or even a little bit further than Bernie getting elected, is not enough. Like they would help to just perpetuate capitalism even further than what it is. We need someone with a revolutionary policy that's going to keep up that same energy and keep people.
No, I think your point, because I think that's what Yang was for. I think Yang was just to soften the ground and introduce the idea of UBI to the public for Silicon Valley on behalf of them. So there's a lot of merit to the idea of just introducing an idea or just shifting a paradigm. There's a lot of merit just to that alone, even if it's not the thing you're looking for. But
you look at places like Venezuela. Like for instance, they won. Like Chavez. I think it's Chavez. Fuck, I'm pretty drunk right now, so I'm not sure. Chavez won. He took over Venezuela, right? And then there have been democratic elections where Maduro has been voted in actually democratically, and yet he's not been able to really get a good grasp or handle things in the city or in his country, specifically because of the fact that he let the bourgeois class and party remain. Like they did things specifically through a reformist bourgeois politics framework. And not only are people still trying to bring them down, like the United States throwing coups, trying to put Juan Guaido in, but also they're not able to get a firm enough grasp on their own political situation because the way that they went about it was reformism based, and they allowed the capitalist class to remain and keep their footing and their stronghold on what's going on. So I do think that there can be change instituted by a leftist government, quote unquote, revolution or change. But
dual power, right? I mean, you're reading Lenin, right? Like that's the key.
yeah, exactly.
It's not just the government; it's the labor unions. It's the empowering renters and peasants. You know, I think we're starting to realize, and at least we should be, that we're having a rising peasant class in the United States.
Absolutely. I mean, and it's not just turbo.
No. Yeah, you're talking about the internal, external avenues to power, right? That's essentially what you guys are talking about, right? Yeah, no. That's why I think the party thing should not be dismissed, but it should not be banked on. I mean, you know, I think everybody on the left knows. I think even the Radlibs know this. But
I think we need our own party and organization, and I'm upset that nobody's trying to formate it.
No, it should definitely.
I mean, sure, there's the DSA. Fuck the DSA. I know a lot of people that are in the DSA that are cool, but they just don't know anywhere else to go. Why is there not another organization to funnel those people into? Is really my concern.
I want to try to thread a needle here because I'm very anti-third party.
Yeah.
I would say fairly electoralism black pill.
Wait, could you turn up your mic just a little bit?
Sorry.
Yeah,
I
perfect.
remember our last conversation, Spicy. I actually had some notes on some things I wanted to push back on from the episode that you were on with us, but go ahead.
Ooh, tasty. So, you know, like to get back to TC's original question about, you know, local campaigns being vehicles for any sort of organizing, you know, when I think about the commentary put on Bernie's campaign and, you know, maybe not Overton window shifting, but just sort of what made his messaging unique and why people found hope in his 2020 run was really a focus on specific material needs that people have and making that a very core central message. And I don't really think much can come out of running a candidate, especially a third party candidate, but really any candidate and sort of trying to rally any sort of organizing around any of these issues, because the nature of the type of organizing you do for campaigns is, you know, isolated to each specific campaign. And it's really not useful for building any sort of momentum beyond specific campaigns, and it being focused on a campaign already sort of limits its scope. So when I hear TC's question, sort of where my mind goes is, what if you had a candidate at a local level who was just kind of like, I only care about the fact that people don't have housing.
Right.
Nothing else matters.
Right.
But their function of running wasn't necessarily to try to win, but was more to put the message out there. And if people were receptive to the message, then go to them and be like, well, how can we help you organize? Because if you're going to get anything out of this, it's going to require you doing your own organizing outside of a campaign.
That's
right?
absolutely what I'm saying.
Yeah. But, you know, I think third party stuff is, you know, attempting to build institutions is no small
I think
feat.
the third party is less attempt, at least in my vision, and I think along the ML party line, is less to build an institution and more so to raise awareness and increase exposures. Like, for instance, the PSL is not running to win the election. Like, they're fucking running with a person who's in jail right now as a war criminal to be their vice president, Leonard Peltier. That's fucking retarded. That would win the election. Like, there's no chance they'll win the presidency.
Right.
But what it's going to do is get people to think, well, who the fuck is Leonard Peltier? And they're going to look him up and be like, wait, he's an indigenous activist who's like a Marxist who's apparently like killed 2 FBI agents. First of all, based as fuck. Second of all, okay, what do these people have to say? And why has he been in prison for 44 years?
Right.
Like,
yes, but also, like, who cares? Like, you know,
exactly.
I just want to go home and game. Like, I don't really give a shit.
Absolutely.
I feel like
I think it's fantasy retarded shit. But at the same time, I appreciate what they're doing as far as exposure. Like, I'm not going to be a member of PSL and be like, hell yeah, we're going to win this, baby. But, like, I can look at that and be like, okay, yeah, I appreciate what they're doing, because some people, maybe it's not you, Spicy, but some people are going to look at that and be like, oh shit, what the fuck? Like, there'll be a couple of people who are at a protest for Black Lives Matter that might be Radlib leaning, that are more libertarian, that might walk up to the PSL and be like, hold up a second. What are y'all talking about? Liberation?
No, I agree. I take Spicy's point that it might take a certain intellectually curious person to do that, which is not the majority.
Yeah, no doubt.
Which I don't know if that's exactly Spicy's point,
and
but
that's
I
why
would.
I'm not a PSL member. Like, I don't think that they're the right party. That's why I advocate for someone starting something new.
The model
I think that shit's a little too tanky.
The model,
Go on, Spicy, sorry.
Like, no, it's okay. Like a less memeable Jimmy McMillan. the rent is too damn high.
yeah,
Hell yeah.
You have that at a local level, and you just had somebody who was like, of course you have to be conscious about like what kind of races can actually get anybody's attention and who are you trying to get attention from,
right?
Which I don't know anything about. But if you had a candidate who was just like, the rent is crazy, it maybe wasn't so memeable, that I feel like that would be sufficient, and the banner under which they won wouldn't really matter, and their winning wouldn't really be the object. It would just be, is there something that we can find some potential base and then enable that base to organize?
Absolutely. I'm very in favor of keeping it fucking simple. Keep it as simple as fucking possible. Keep it as universal and common denominator as you can possibly muster. And something like that, again, like we were saying, like it applies to everybody. I think that is a good avenue. So are you saying that you think that the local politics avenue will be more viable, or is that still fall under the trap of electoralism not really being useful for you, Spicy?
I think it's threading the needle. Like the point I'm trying to get more at, based on this dope thread that I found earlier and how it aligns with what I've been thinking about, is there needs to be some sort of organizing which needs to be independent of electoralism. And so
absolutely.
Electoralism can play a role. It should be to direct energy towards that sort of independent organizing, right? That's like the only function it can have. And
right. I don't think it should be too caught up in well, that's why M4A, as much as it was co-opted and technocratic or whatever, there's something of value to, it's single payer, right? But then they condense it down to something as relatable as, Medicare, how about just all for everybody? Like some sloganing, some branding that makes it very digestible. And something like housing for all or whatever, like housing, there's a way to make that very, accessible to a lot of people, and just keep it there. Don't get into the whole, the capital, the reptilians are hoarding capital there. in that, you don't need to get into all that. Just keep it simple, and it will resonate with people, and you'll get the fucking numbers. And once you got the numbers, you can do a lot of your options vastly expand.
I mean, I don't know how realistic it is. Like the candidate I envision would be like, okay, like, so you care a lot about housing. Like, what about this other issue? And they'd be like, I don't care about that. Like, if I get into office, I'm going to hire good people. That's what matters. But I'm only here to talk about the rent. Like,
I think it needs to be more universal of an approach. Like, I understand that id poll and shit is generally superfluous, a little bit over the top and too general, or too specific, not general enough. But I think people need, as far as a productive and successful movement, it needs to recognize as well as antagonize every single instance of state brutality, inefficiency, state, like anything that makes people black-pilled against the state or the current system, we need to be doing. It doesn't matter if it's not labor completely. It doesn't matter if it has an in-pool tinge. It needs to be, even if it has an id-pool tinge, through a material lens, it doesn't matter. It's material, like id-pool shit that people are worried about, or not material.
There's a bad
superfluous. Mid-pool is not just superficial shit. It's real shit that people are worried about.
Sure.
We need to be able to relate that specific back to the general cause, rather than just ignoring that specific and telling people that shit doesn't matter, worry about this. People are worried about the shit that affects them personally. We need to be able to relate the shit that affects them personally on the day-to-day back to the specific that connects the entire system as a whole.
Sure, but we're not going to be able to get we're just talking about what's galvanizing, right? It's very, I mean, if you're having one-on-one conversations, I totally agree with your approach. And we talked about this, COH is like, talk to these people, find out whatever the fuck their personal id-poll grievances are and convert it to a material thing. Absolutely. On a one-on-one basis. But in terms of what's, there's a PR element to it in terms of galvanizing people on a national scale, on a maybe not even national, but even local. Look, if you're in a city, like, it's a lot of fucking people. Like, you need to boil it down to
universal topic,
consumable, right? And that's where I guess a lot of third parties get a bad rep for being a one-issue party or one-issue candidate. And I don't, to Spice's point, I don't know if it's detrimental or beneficial, but it is useful to have a flagship thing. Like, this is the main thing I'm going on. Do you relate to this shit?
Back to UBI being like, so UBI was quote unquote successful, right? People know about it. People are aware of it. My, taxi driver will tell me about it. I'll go and, see someone on the street at a bar. They'll talk to me about UBI. So what was the reason that UBI gained some sort of galvanizing effect? Is it because Yang? Is it because it sounds good on the tin? Or is it just because it's the only reason it's allowed on the wavelengths at all? Because it benefits the powerful when done correctly. Like, I don't think universal housing universal housing doesn't benefit the powerful. There's no way that they can twist it to benefit the powerful.
Absolutely. That's the thing that I like about it, is that I'm trying to think of ways to co-opt it, and it's a lot trickier than healthcare or education, which is why the left was scared to talk about it, which is why Bernie and AOC are, they're not going to talk about it. I mean, of course there's ways to co-opt it. They'll come up with something, they'll hire consultants and think of something, but it is a lot trickier. It's a lot too close to capital to just twist the way that everybody else does about all the other issues, which is a big benefit, which is why it might be a useful avenue.
I just don't know how something like that survives the great filters, as Chomsky called them, of media and culture and all that bullshit. At what point is it just kind of like, oh yeah, we need to shut that guy the fuck up? Like, goddamn, like we can't have someone talking about universal basic housing. Universal basic income is cool because we'll just get rid of welfare and shit. Like, whatever.
No, you're right. You're totally right. You're totally right. The reason, and this is a big thing I talk about that makes me sound very paranoid, but like, the reason why things are allowed in leftist discourse are because they're deliberately allowed. What things that Bernie talk about, or Squad talk about, or DSA talk about, are because that's what's sanctioned. That's what's condoned, because they're not threatening enough. And UBI, of course, exactly the way you're saying, Yang, whoever, like, there's a reason why it was given space, was because it was it's not a threat to them. And it's just like BLM, just like everything, like things that are not a threat will get a lot more airtime. And
you saw Elon Musk tweeting about, I'm in favor of UBI. It's like, no shit, you're in
of
favor
course,
of
yeah,
UBI,
of course,
dude. Keep Elon's thoughts on it. Like,
of course, right. Yeah, housing. I don't know. I guess Trump is coming out with this stuff where he's like, low income housing is fucking up the suburbs. I'm going to get rid of it. I guess there is a way to. I guess he's sort of at the front of obfuscating it, that I'm aware of right now, in terms of making it seem like it's could be racialized, right? That's got a lot of racial intonations to it.
Just put them in ghettos. Like, public housing,
right.
and universal housing could become a fascist tool to just put all the the lesser thens in a single location, so you can just put all the police state power there and let whatever special class run the cities, and these people toil and
exactly. Yep. That's what I want to talk about, is like the black pill, like the nightmare scenario where they can co-opt these things into shit like that, which is just totally possible. We've got favelas or whatever, and maybe they've abolished the police as the left, as everything moves socially left but fiscally right, and they've abolished police, but they've got private police in gated communities, and you're in a favela where there's like no law and like tons of crime or whatever. That could be. I could see that where UBI is obviously the lowest hanging fruit. Where like, oh yeah, you want this fucking bone? Like, yeah, we'll give this. Like, what does this cost us? Like, not much. If they're doing MMT or whatever, and like, oh, we don't, you're just subsidizing the landlords. You're just subsidizing the price gougers or whatever. Like, we don't give a fuck. We'll give you that. Like that, and then who knows? Yeah, maybe the free housing in favela situations is another bone that they're just like, yeah, this is nothing to us. Like, we'll give you this. Like, enjoy it or whatever. And then yeah, I mean, that's a good point. I mean, that might be a sign of the demands not being enough, because that's the key, right? Is you need demands. You need to go to the table with demands that can't be compromised. Well, it can't be co-opted.
Like making a deal with the devil. Like, he'll twist it.
Faustian,
something that wasn't.
Right, the Faustian bargain, right. You need to come to the table with something. You need to highball. If you're negotiating, you need to highball, ask for a lot. And if they're going to knock you down and negotiate you down, at least it'll be something closer to what you first asked than if you go to it with, yeah, that's a fair point to wonder if whether the housing demand is actually something that's still too lowballed.
I want to go back to Spicy, because Spicy pointed out that it needs to come from the people that live there. Mm-hmm. That there's no like outside third party force that can come in and be like, oh, you deserve housing. Like, here it is. Like, there's no effective way to actually do that. Really, to have communal ownership of something, that is the route that we need to take in order to prevent the hellscape world of ghettoization.
I think as well, like, if you're talking about anti-co-optation, like having individual communities advocating for themselves, like the co-optation is a big threat when you have some public figure who's leading it on a national stage, and there's one narrative, and that one narrative is on public display, and that one narrative can be combated. Whereas if you have disparate communities organizing within themselves, like, yes, they're going to face opposition, but that's a very direct, tangible form of opposition that can be overcome. And yeah, so it's like, yeah, I mean, that pretty much that.
Yeah, totally. And I always wonder, like, what I see a lot of is I hear from these renters union advocates, and a lot of those are PMC. A lot of these people are highly educated. A lot of these people have housing that it's very comfortable for them. And they come in and they try and organize renters into renters unions so they can self-advocate, so they can make collective demands. And obviously that's a beneficial track. But it's this outsider to disconnected communities. It's like, hey, like, I see that your community is entirely fragmented and not unified. As an outsider, I want to come in and turn you guys into a community and friendship. But how do I prevent being this whole like PMC savior bullshit? How do I prevent myself from being this intelligentsia coming in and telling you how to do your community?
Right, because urban planning, the whole field of urban planning is sort of in that vein, like where, I took some grad school classes on that where it's a lot of like public-private partnership of like, basically how they do gentrification, like, we'll be the avenue to get these companies to come in and revitalize the neighborhood, but as long as they get a piece of it, they got equity. So there's definitely a lot of room for skepticism of like, our neighborhood is shit and like we're fucked, and these outside people are coming in to fix it, but they're just making it worse or just making it in a way where just to displace them. There's a lot of valid skepticism and cynicism there. That's hard to. Yeah, I think you're right. I think there's a lot of. That's a good point. Yeah, it's got to become. It's got to be internal. It's got to be, people that they know. That there's got to be some built-in trust to that.
So how do you galvanize? Is it through just the inherent factor that things are going to get much worse, or is there an education methodology that we can take to try and get people more involved and excited and believing that they can take control of their own housing? Or is it just like, because I'm so worried that we're going to say, oh, well, things are going to get so bad, people have to react. And if you listen to like Chapo or anything recently, they've got this whole black pill, I'm edgy type vibe now, where that's essentially what it is. They're kind of like flippantly like, well, until things get bad, no one's going to do anything. So
accelerationist.
Yeah, they're getting kind of accelerationist. And it's like, I don't know if that's going to work, because I'm pretty sure like they have all the power and all the access to prevent us from ever feeling like we can do anything. They control the acceleration. So how are you supposed to say, oh, well, it's just going to get so bad that eventually people will rise up and we'll be fine?
Yeah. That's a very good point, because there's a lot of people who are like Biden accelerationist or whatever, and or even Trump acceleration. However you frame that, it's going to benefit us. And I'm very like I notice a lot of rattlers take that stance, and like I'm very nervous about it. One, maybe just out of like fear of how bad it'll actually be. Maybe that's more visceral. But the other thing is like I'm not so confident we're going to have the reins over the way this shakes out. It seems kind of naive. It seems kind of naive to me that we're gonna hit this cliff and that's when we're gonna take flight. It's like, what if we just fucking
with
eat
material
shit?
Conditions now, absolutely fucking like that's one of the things that's been so upsetting. I've been reading all this revolutionary literature like Lenin and Mao and shit, and I've been getting black pilled as fuck reading this, because I'm like, bro, Mao and his army marched 6,000 miles across China. Who the fuck would do anything like that now? And also, like, the material conditions are completely different. Like, how would you do that now? Like, how would you, like, that's one thing that I've been super worked up about recently, just like in my head about, is I've been reading all this and I'm thinking, okay, if you are tanky, like, okay, say we get into some type of revolution, how do we get to the point where it would even be effective? And could we ever? And how do we re-envision what modern revolutionary like organization, warfare, etc. may look like compared to this bullshit that was not bullshit, sorry, but theory and stuff that was written in completely different material conditions. Like, you can read Mao's on guerrilla warfare and think one of three things. A, fuck, we're fucked. We have no type of material conditions like that. B, oh yeah, this is exactly what we need to do. Or C, you can read it and say like, okay, this is how it applies to our material conditions. And I don't see really anyone doing that. And I don't even know how, like, if you want to go the tanky route, we are not even remotely set up for any type of insurrection, and we wouldn't be and won't be for God knows how long. Like, and no one's even working on trying to get the people on our side to even support that. Even the tankies who think that they could just like overthrow the government.
Right.
They're like, where's the support? Before anything, you need material support from the people and the population. And second of all, we should maybe be thinking about insurgents in the military and the state, as well as the police like function. Like,
absolutely.
You're reading this type of stuff. Guerrilla forces have to combine with regular forces of military. Well, obviously, no fucking leftist who, like, no Chomsky with his fashion shit. He's going to tell us how perform militarily. Like, what are you talking about?
No, especially all the rad-libs that like hate they hate the troops and they hate the police and
yeah, exactly. They're like, all cops are bastards,
right? Despite their working class origins or
exactly,
or being against guns.
These people, they are working class materially, but functionally they support and carry out capital's will, right? So here's my question as far as leftists go forward. A, where is our program as far as propaganda into police and armed forces, the military? B, is there one? C, is it worth it to do that? And or should we be focusing on that? Because reading past literature of other revolutions and even thinking about our material conditions now, I mean, we would need, if you want to go the tanky route, or not even the tanky route, but just general insurrection route, you need support of people who are tactically trained and have, like, the battlefield is a university of war. I mean, that's what Mao says. He says political power is in the barrel of a gun. I mean, where is that represented in the American left in it, and why is it not?
And this is where we need to start unifying around the materialist perspective, because if you can intone that to people that they're essentially knights in a feudal army, that, you know, as soon as stuff gets tough, they're going to slit your throat from behind. Like, these capitalist pigs don't care about you. You're a foot soldier for like their oppression, and they'll oppress you as quickly as they oppress anybody else. Like, you don't matter to them. Like, so that's a good point. Is that outreach valuable? Is it going to bear fruit? It's really hard to like beat that type of level of indoctrination that the U.S. military has.
Absolutely.
That's
another
tough.
thing I've been thinking is, are our material conditions so different now that it wouldn't even be possible to do that? Like, is it even worth it trying to infiltrate or influence or propagandize in those circles? I think it is. I think it has to be. But I don't know that we have enough experience, intel, or even ability to do that. Like, I don't know.
Do we have to like trick people? Do we have to like essentially go in and be like, oh no, like this is where people get into this black brown race bullshit, and anybody that is in fun in it is, you know, black or basically.
Wait, is TC breaking up for the rest of you, or?
Yeah, TC, you're breaking up, bud.
Hey.
TC. But anyways.
Wait, talk for a little bit.
You guys hear me okay?
All right,
yeah,
you're good now.
Now we're here.
Okay. I was just saying that this black alliance that everyone gets accused of is because when you actually gain any sense of like read the room and see where like the path forward is, it's not through telling people that communism is going to win, because everyone will tell you, well, the U.S. military has been indoctrinated for 100 years, basically, in communism. And so what you're going up against like a Sisyphean effort to try and recalibrate people's brains to support this thing that they've been fed for decades and decades is pure evil.
Right.
So what do? You kind of have to edge into this whole Yang shit where you're just like, oh, I'm Andrew Yang. I'm like this weird, like, you don't know what I am. I could be anything. Like, I'm whatever you think I am. And that's what Trump was. Trump was just a mirror. He was just this guy that was supposedly successful, that talked like a human being. In 2016, he's lost his brain since, but like in 2016, he got up there and he'd be like, "Hey, what's going on? These people suck, right? Am I right?" And everyone's like, "Oh man, he talks like a human."
Non-reptilian,
yeah. More so than not fucking Bernie's bitch ass. Bernie was like, "You know the people in the audience," and Trump was like, "Yeah, these are the fuckers that are in the audience."
Right.
Like,
exactly.
He named it.
Exactly.
Or not Biden. Bernie alluded to it.
Exactly.
You can't do that. You can't allude and make inferences with people. Like, people need straight up shit that's not bullshit and not be.
Yeah, and a lot of the left is unaware of the fact that the military and the police are people who are preyed on the underclass. And once you understand that why did they join the military? People that I know personally, like why they joined the military or the cops, is because they had a material interest in doing it. So if you know that that's the root of it, take that angle. Don't take the angle of fuck you because you took this job, or fuck what you believe. Take what was the root cause of them going there. Use that as something that could galvanize them towards you. Now, I don't know how important it is to get the police or the military or people of that training on our side. I don't know. It's probably very important. I think that's a good point. But yeah, ultimately the point is just to get the numbers, and the point is to talk about things that get those people and galvanize them. And you have to stick to wide, broad things that are material that will get those numbers. And the left is completely uninterested in these things. And I think, as far as me taking an anarchist leaning against a lot of that, the tanky perspective is like, you need these people on board. You need them fucking on board. You can't force it. and you need a pitch. You need a pitch to get them with you. And it seems to me a lot of the left is completely disinterested in this, completely disinterested. And there's some insular vibe where they don't care, and they don't feel like they need to get these people on board.
Yeah, they see the military and the police as a sort of barrier to success instead of a route to success.
Right.
They see them not as individuals, but as the ideology that created and crafted.
Exactly. Which is ultimately why defund the police ended up being a bunch of fucking bullshit, because it was flawed from the beginning. Why are you talking about the police? The police are not the fucking problem. Who pays the police? Who trained them? Why did they train them that way? That's the fucking problem. If you don't talk about that shit, you're spinning your wheels and you're not going to get fucking anywhere. And that's why it's spent. That's why, when as soon as Floyd died, I was like, yo, this shit is not going anywhere. And that's what happened, because it's like, it wasn't going anywhere. Unless you name who's your enemy and what's the problem and address it, you're going the same way every other left project is going, which is nowhere. So,
Can I drop a hot take?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, let's hear it.
Hey.
Is it about eating ass?
Beirut is a fucking psyop.
Whoa, dropped a bomb.
I swear to God.
It was actually
literally
just a pig. She blew it up.
We're on the verge of the eviction crisis, and all I see, all embedded in PMC world, right? All I fucking see is posts about donating to Beirut.
What?
And
Really?
Yes.
It's like that Paris shit. Maybe you better change your AVI to like a Beirut flag.
I've seen the clean Instagram story sharing shit. I do a pretty good job of not pissing anyone off. And so I have a lot of really good conversations with college educated liberal friends, and all of them are very open and sympathetic to the direct arguments being made. But what happens every single time, and it's the same thing with George Floyd, the same thing with every single one of these emotionally resonant crises, where the NGO donation complex sweeps in and takes any sort of any sort of energy and has this whole moralized component. Right. It just keeps going from the next thing to the next thing to the next thing. And who cares? I don't know who did it. I don't know what happened. It could have been fireworks. I don't really care. But all I'm seeing is there's going to be the eviction crisis is going to be starting. It's going to be slow rolled, and nobody's going to be paying attention because it's not some big, tragic story like this.
Aha.
So I think it's a psyop.
Part of the deluge.
You hit the nail on the head with the whole NGO donations. Oh, just give money. Just pay the penance. Just go to church and pay your tithes. Right. And you will be good again, and you will be clean again.
Right.
If you just pay the NGO the money, you did the right thing.
Right.
And you don't need to think about who did it or why it happened.
You don't need updates on what's happening with your money.
Right, it's like that Minnesota fund thing where they found out
I just sent out First is Tragedy, Then is Farce by Zizek. This is from 2011 or 2010. It's like an animated little sketch that he did, and people should Google it. RSA animate. First is Tragedy, Then is Farce, and it radicalized me. And I saw it, and I was like, oh shit. It's just you realize that all of this stuff, all these donations, and everyone always guilting you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And it's if you're a real socialist, you give all your money to NGOs.
Well, this is the thing. There's the thing. It's
if you're a real socialist, give all your money to Joe Biden.
Well, it's the same thing as the the Minnesota fund where they were getting the bails, and then it didn't a fraction of it, a small fraction went to actually giving out the bails, and all the people with the
$40 million.
Yeah, and all the people who have Venmos in their bios, hey, I'm of this X minority group, I need your money, all this stuff. Charity, philanthropy, NGO philanthropy, Bill Gates philanthropy, right? The Clinton Foundation. All of it is in a neo-lib capitalist framework, individualizing how you are putting Band-Aids on the bullet wounds of this whole system. That's what it's always been. It's always that's why when the left and the DSA talks about direct action and all this individualized donation shit, it's lib cucked shit. That's all it is. It's not changing shit. And, I don't understand how these people have hammer sickle bios and don't understand this. I haven't even read that shit, and I understand this. This is part of the same fucking system. What are you talking? You're basically using Bill Gates' rationale. You know what I mean? NGO, Gates, Melinda Gates, Bill Gates, NGO rationale. How do they not see that? I don't understand it. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah.
People are dog brain, bro. People just want to have someone tell them the easiest shit to think, the easiest solution. I mean, that's why you have religion. That's why you have fucking cults. That's why you have liberalism. That's why you have Marx. Hell, that's why you have socialism, bourgeois socialism.
Yeah, wokeness is very much a religion with this. Yeah, it's like what you're saying, DC, about the paying tidings thing. It's like this is always performative shit. It's like the Netflix thing you were talking about with the trans girls. Like, it's always, this is how you fix it, is what I individually do and how performative I am. And hey, I get to brag about this with my lib friends that I donated this much money to whatever the fuck. This is how you do socialism. This is how you help the world, is like what I did and what credit I get for it. You know what I mean? As long as it's in those confines and people accept that framework, nothing's going to fucking happen. And
individualism is a mental disorder, man. It is like drilled into our head.
Yep.
Everything in the entire world revolves around the individual, and you're atomized and you're singular, and all that matters is you presenting yourself as a good person to the world,
right?
And presenting yourself as moral and righteous, and because you're the center of the universe, and that's how we're born into it. We're bred into it, and we can't escape it. It's a mind prison.
We're all the star of our own fucking like action and adventure fairy tale movie in America. It's like, yo, guess what? You're fucking not actually the extra in the back. Like, fucking wise up to it, dude.
Right? Is the world about the flood and permafrost is about to melt and release some ancient fucking diseases? Well, you know what the cure to that is you fucking using a metal straw. That's the solution to that, right? It's some real heavy shit going down. That's what you can fucking do to fix that. Or if there's some pandemic that's about to be the Black Plague, you know what fixes that is how well you wear your mask. Are you wearing it properly? Do you have a tape measure on hand to measure 6 feet between you and your friends? That's how you fucking solve this. Like,
are you in a bubble?
Yeah, are you the bubble boy? Are you?
This is where if you're not doing all that you can to prevent this virus.
Yeah.
If you're not
cataclysmic
using
shit.
A paper straw that goes flimsy in your coffee, fuck you. Like,
this is also where prepper culture comes from, right? And the book boy. Like, that's also the same shit. It's this individualistic identity that says, oh, if I buy enough guns, I have enough tack gear, and I live out in the middle of the woods,
but that's
no way
different.
that I can get hurt.
That's a little bit different. That's a little bit more standing and less individual mandate. Like the Boogaloo Boys aren't saying like if you and 7 of your homies get guns, you're gonna outlast this whole thing. It's more like, hey, if you get guns, you might exist and do like some strong survive shit. With libs, it's like, hey, if me and my 7 friends use metal straws instead of you and your 5 friends using plastic straws, we're gonna win this thing, baby. Yeah. And it's like the Boogaloo Boys, I get it, man. Fuck it, let me get some. Let me start a militia.
Yeah,
hell, we should be doing that. Like,
yeah, the Ruby Ridge Waco shit, like that is more valid to me than the lib, shit. But I do take TC's point that I think it is still in the same. They're libertarians. They'll tell you themselves they're libertarians. Like, it's still in the individualistic, framework. But yeah, it is just funny that that's how you solve this like cataclysmic, like earth-ending shit is how well you do your little part. Like, you can prevent forest fires type shit.
Either buy a metal reusable straw or hide up in the mountains with a couple boys with guns. Those are your choices.
Right.
I mean, one's a little bit more realistic, to be fair.
Right. All right, cool. So I think we hit like a little bit over 2 hours. Is there other shit that you guys like wanted to touch on that we didn't really talk about, or?
Let me just plug the tweet I was talking about. If anyone wants to find it, it was DSA Communist Caucus at DSA Communist posted today.
Oh my God!
Really
what is it? It's a cringe. I mean,
no.
It's good. It's good.
It's good.
It's the one I was referencing about like electoralism, tenant militancy, all that good stuff.
Yeah, sometimes DSA is on point, like the Philly DSA thing when they did the class reductionist thing about George Floyd. They said what I basically said the day it happened was like the $20 counterfeit thing was a material thing, like, and then they got mad flack from all the socialist Karens, like, sometimes they've got different caucuses, so it's decentralized. So like sometimes certain ones hit it more on the head than others do. So
Absolutely.
But yeah, was there other shit?
Got nothing, man. I just, I think it was a good talk. I don't think we got anywhere definitive.
Definitely not. No,
I mean, there's never really any way to get anywhere definitive until you start actually taking the action from the material circumstances. Like, that's the thing about these people that tell you to read fucking theory. It's like, I can read all the goddamn theory I want to read. It's not going to help me out with shit until people or I start actually taking steps to do anything.
People said that revolution is the crucible by which socialism is like discovered. Like, he can't give you the end game. He can't give you the prescriptive ideal of what socialism will be. He's like, no, like, you need to
do it yourself.
Action.
Absolutely. It's like Mao said when he was talking about guerrilla warfare. He said the battlefield is the university of war. The same thing goes as action is the university of organization of, or is the school of revolution. You have to take action. You have to organize. You have to figure it out. And that goes back to what I was saying in the beginning, which is that what to do, how to organize is the main focus and the main factor. Transhistoric is deep and everything. And that's what we're focused with, what we're faced with again today is how do we focus? Who are we? What are we doing? What needs to be done? And how the fuck are we gonna do it? And no one's really talking. Honestly, everyone's arguing about gender-specific language and people being too loud at the DSA convention and people posting Lenin out of context talking about communists from the 1800s. Stop doing that shit. Who's providing me material class analysis today? Does anyone have any recommendations? If anyone does, feel free to hit us at the Fed Post on Twitter because I need to see who's doing this because I've not seen it. And if not, I'm going to start doing it.
No, yeah, this is where the convo needs to go. And yeah, this is as good as time as any with the looming crises that are piling up to talk about it and to take a break from shit posting 24/7.
I mean, I still shit post. I mean, you look at that account, it's retarded, but
no, of course,
there's smart tidbits in there.
Yeah, a break from the white hotep goofy shit, like
white hotep mass shooter shit and real analysis of class condition.
Yeah, the medicine and the sugar, but yeah, this was definitely good, and yeah, I was glad. It's good we talked about some real shit that COH sparked, like what the next steps are, and yeah, it was perfect to have TC on for this to give us some insight, like how this shit actually gets applied. You want to drop your name and your @ for everybody? We'll put it in the beginning.
Check out @TryCrying. I mostly just shitpost. I mean, I don't know that much. I just had a limited amount of experience, and I'm glad you guys had me on because it's always a good roundtable discussion with you fellas.
Absolutely. Thanks, Spicy, for filling in for our beautiful Groiper boy, Slav. Hopefully he's okay.
We're gonna find him.
But yeah, all right. This is perfect. All right. Catch you guys next week. Thanks, TC. Appreciate it.
Yes, bye.
All right, peace.